Alright, so what I'm going to provide for the channel today is I'm going to do an install video on, I went down to Cabela's today, one of our great sponsors for my son's high school bass club, and I picked up the Garmin Echomap, the 7SV. It's got traditional sonar, down sand, side sand. We're going to put this up front on the trolling motor. I have a 2008 Skeeter ZX190, and it's got a Minn Kota Maxim trolling motor, an 80-pound thrust Maxim trolling motor. And our install today is going to be putting this Garmin Echomap on the trolling motor mount. All right, so we're going to do our unboxing here. See what all we've got in this unit. So it's going to come with the head unit and the protective cover. These are instructions if you're going to flush mount it, a pattern that you can cut out the hole you're going to need to put it in. We won't be doing that today. This is a really neat on the Echomaps. This stays on the boat, but it's a quick release to where you can pop it on and off really easy and not have to unscrew it and readjust it when you put it back on. These are our transducers, our transducer wires, and power wires. Figure out what that is later. And swivel mount. Alright, so I'm going to start getting some of the stuff out of here. There was a really good sell at Cabela's. This is a $750 unit. It was actually on sale right now for $4.99, so we saved some money. This is a trolling motor mount and clamp. Comes with all that already to go, so you don't have to, like some of the other brands. If you want to mount on a trolling motor, you've got to spend $30 or $40 extra on a trolling motor mount. So we're going to kind of get all our stuff laid out here, and then get back with you here in just a minute, and we'll start getting ready to install this on the boat. Alright, so I've seen these mounted a couple of ways on these trolling motors. So we previously had a front trolling motor. It was an older Lowrance HDS 7 unit on a ram mount, and we're going to utilize that ram mount, and I'm going to mount the new unit on the ram mount. It also had this right here. I'm going to eventually get a new piece to put on top of that, where the transducer and power wires came, or the transducer wire went into the boat and then come back up for the deal. So I'm going to try to reutilize that in the power wires. Mount you can see in the carpet where the old ram mount was. We're going to mount it back there. There's a couple of ways, and some people will run the wires all the way down the foot pedal and up. I'm going to try to stay away from that. I know that that's shielded, but the more you can keep your transducer cables away from your power cables for your trolling motor, the less interference it's going to get. So what I did, you can see I drilled 3 holes on the side of the mount. I'm going to come up through here and then go along, zip tie it along here, jump over to here, zip tie it down to the end of the trolling motor. Anyway, that's plan A. We'll see how that works out. We may be going to plan B later. So our next order of business is we're going to install the transducer trolling motor mount to the transducer. So basically this is going to go through here. That will come onto here with screws. And then this will go around, and I've already checked to make sure it fits the diameter of my trolling motor. So we're going to get that done, and I'm not going to bore you with all the putting in the screws, but that'll be our first step. So a couple of little tech tips I've got. I've about got this done. One thing I would say would be put your hose clamp through the mounting bracket before you install it to the transducer. Another thing is what I'm having to do with these screws, there's 7 total, is get on the screwdriver and kind of hold it upside down to get it started. And the reason why I figured that out is I tried to do it laying on the boat, and you can see I've got one of the lock washers jammed in there, so I'm going to have to get that lock washer out before I can put that last screw in. Alright, so I resolved my issue with getting the lock washer jammed up in the hole there. Just took a little pick and got that out of there. Got all the screws in, so this is all ready to mount to the bottom of my trolling motor. Alright, so basically I've got this all ready to mount up on my, the bottom of my trolling motor, and basically we're just gonna, this is gonna set right here, and tighten up that hose clamp, and then we'll start securing the cables up to the boat. Alright, so I've got the trolling motor mount on with the transducer, and well, I went ahead and I put it on with the screw head facing up. It would have been easier put it right here facing down, but I figure if I ever have to work on this for any reason while we're on the boat on the water, it'll be easier with the screw head facing that direction. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start working on securing all the cable up the length of the trolling motor shaft. We're going to be using zip ties. Garmin includes 4 small zip ties with the unit. I'm going to use a little bit heavier duty zip tie, and quite a few more than 4. So we're going to get working on that, and I'll show you a little bit of that. All right, so now we're going to start zip tying the trolling motor cables, the transducer cables, to the shaft of the trolling motor itself. There's a couple of things you got to kind of watch for when you do this. And you know, sometimes you don't want a lot of play down here. Luckily enough, this one, the cable is going to be pretty much in line with my shaft. Some of them you're going to have to come across. You just want a nice, you don't want to leave any slack down here for it to catch on anything when you're out on the water. So I'm going to start zip tying up to this area up in here, and right when we get to this, right here's where the shaft turns inside the housing. When we get to this, we're going to have to leave a little bit of slack in there, and I'll show that to you when we get up there. All right, we're coming to the point now where, you know, I was telling you about, you're going to have to leave some slack. You know, I don't like things to be sloppy or anything to that matter, but the trolling motor shaft turns within the mount here. If I were to pull this tight and zip tie that down all the way through, that it wouldn't, what would happen would I'd wind up breaking my cable right here. So, and you don't have to leave a whole lot of slack. I'm going to leave a loop about like that, which is probably too much. I'd rather have too much right now than not enough, so I'm going to leave about this much of a loop, probably 3 inches up off, and then I'll play around with it. If it's too much, you know, I'll pull it all the way through, and then if it's not enough, we'll get some more out there. But we're going to keep going up the shaft with the zip ties, and then come down the side and go in our little port we got right there to run the cable. So another little tech tip here: if you guys do decide to use this technique of drilling the 3 holes in the side of the Maxim bracket, when you put the zip ties in, and I did the 3/8 holes, the exact width of the, I didn't want real big holes, so I made it the exact width of the zip ties. What I found out after doing the first one here, you'll see that one looks a little different. Run the zip tie all the way into where the head is up against the hole, and then tighten it down. I had a hard time with this one. You can see it looks a little different. I had a hard time getting that one tight because I was having to fish the zip tie through that hole. So it worked out a lot better to just push it all, run the zip tie all the way through to the head, and then come back down. So basically I'm just going to go down with this and make sure that And I can already tell I'm going to have to leave more of a loop here. I'm going to have to leave more room. That's too tight. It's not going to go down well. So you can see that I left some space up here, but not enough. So I'm going to, and I may wind up drilling another hole up here just to make this a little bit neater. All right, so we've got the trolling motor deployed. Cable looks good. We've got enough slack here that the trolling motor can deploy and redeploy and come back up. I don't like this. So what's probably going to happen here is I'm probably going to do drill another hole here and then a zip tie there. Sorry, I was pointing the tram in the wrong direction there. I'm going to probably drill another hole right here and then put a zip tie in right here. So that way I'll have a little bit of slack on this side, a little bit of slack on this side, not this much slack on this side. So we fish in Oklahoma, so we do some bushwhacking in the spring. I don't want that catching limbs and stuff like that. So the other plan is, like I said, the trolling motor, we're going to use the ram mount that we had. These things are expensive, so I don't want to go buy a new one. So it's going to come up here. Previously on the old trolling motor, they had the power cable, they had the transducer cable running in here and then coming out here with the power cable. I want to get as little chance of interference as I can on this unit. There's not a lot of power stuff running this side. I think there's one real small power wire running to my LED lights on this side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it through. I'm going to run it in, and like I said, I'm going to get a new top cap. I'm going to run it in. I'm going to coil all of my excess cable there and run it back out, and it'll plug directly, into the back of the unit here. And then I'll bring the power cables out of this side up to the trolling motor and keep everything separate. That way I don't have to worry as much about interference. So I'm going to drill this hole up here, get that zip tie in, and we're going to see how that looks. All right, so I've got everything is going well. I added the hole here, left this slack here. This is all fixed, so I could get this tight here. This is all the slack I needed. I went ahead and added a hole here just to neaten things up a little bit. All our movements up here. I left this slack. I went around. That's going to be plenty to let the trolling motor turn. And our next step is going to be running it in the boat, getting rid of the slack, and then running it back out. So I'm going to set the trolling motor back down, and we're going to work on that. All right, so I've got my front panel taken off. This gives me access under here. I've got the transducer cable running through and back out. I probably could have got away with just shoving all that down in there, but this is the rod locker, and some of our longer rods come all the way up here. So I'm going to run this out. I'm going to spool all this up and zip tie it, and then run this back up through. This little piece here, you can tell it's pretty beat up and damaged up. I'm not going to put that back on. I'll just go run by somewhere tomorrow and get a new one and put it on here, and then make it look a little nicer. So I'm gonna spool this up. I'm gonna take the old Lowrance bracket off of the ram mount, and then we'll look at what we got to do to mount the Garmin bracket up here. All right, well, I've got it mounted, got the mounting bracket on the ram mount ball for the top. It barely fit. I wasn't able to reuse the screws from the old Lowrance mount, so luckily this is a good idea, I keep a pretty good assortment of stainless steel screws and bolts and nuts. Got some extra prop nuts and pins and stuff in there. I keep that in my little tool bag I keep in the boat, and that's, things come loose and things lose screws when you're 3.5 to 4 hours away at a tournament. It's nice to have some stuff to fix the boat with, so I keep that stuff in my tool bag. The bolts that I had that I wanted to use, they're stainless steel. they actually were too big. I had to drill out the ram mount bracket and the plastic Lowrance bracket to get the bolts that I wanted to work. But I'd rather have these bigger ones than try to go find some smaller ones. All right, we're going to get all this mounted up. We're going to get all this mounted up and show you the next step. All right, so I've got all my extra cable coiled up neatly to be tucked into the nose of the boat, and I've got my ram mount all secured down and got that ready to go as well. So trim those up a little bit, get my power cables run, and we're getting close to being done with this project. So far, Plan A's working out fairly well. I'm glad we didn't have to, go too far down the alphabet, but we'll see how it works out in the end. All right, so we got the quick attachment bracket mounted up. Power cord's going to go in there. There's another piece we got to put in here. That's just to measure the distance. All my cord is coiled up inside, and actually I think what I'm going to try to do is it's still laying on top of the tips of the rods. I can feel the rods in our rod locker. My trolling motor bolts stick down just far enough. I'm going to try to zip tie these up on top to where they're up out of the way of the rods, so the rods aren't interfering with those when we run the rods up into the rod locker. We got the rods come to almost here. Some of our longer rods do. So, all right, so you can see I've got the head unit set on. That's about where it's going to be. Got the cables connected. Got them run through. So my next step is going to be hooking up the power cord. So what I'm going to do here for the power cord, I've got this has got a older Lowrance Gen 1 HDS 5. Of course, it doesn't have a trolling motor mount. This basically is Ethernetted up to the structure scan box. So basically this unit here is strictly maps and down scan. It doesn't have any chirp sonar or side scan, anything like that. So we can do down scan, we can do maps. So that's flush mounted into my front panel there. So I've isolated the ground and hot wires. Here's the old wire clips that they used before, and basically I'm just going to cut these wire clips off, and I'm going to splice in my wire clips now. So what I'll be using the red for power, black for ground. The blue and brown are for the NEMA cables, which those aren't going to be used. I'm just going to get some wire tape and cover those up and probably tape them back. So next step is we're going to clip these off and splice everything back in. Here's the ground. I just use the wire splices to run them all together. And there's the hot wire. So yeah, I've taped back the NEMA wires on all of them. So we'll get this all tucked away and get it in and get it all put back together and see how it looks. And then we're going to test it out. Alright, so we've got everything kind of buttoned up. I don't have the screws back in the plate yet. That's just sitting in there loose. I'm going to test everything out. I'm going to get one of these, either run to Academy and get the cover for that. Maybe order it off Amazon. Got everything ran, got the head unit on, the cover. So I haven't cut any of the wire clamps off. I'm going to raise and lower it a few times to make sure everything's working as it should. And then start cleaning things up and call it a night. Well, as you can see, it's powering up. When I turned it automatically powered up. I didn't have to hit the power button. So when I turned the main power on, the accessory power to the boat. So we are powering up. Hopefully good things are going to happen here. I'm going to kind of go through. This is touchscreen, so all right. So we got, here's our charts, fishing charts. Okay. They're showing us in Florida right now. We're in my metal shop, so it's probably not going to pick it up until we get out to the lake tomorrow. Back, we go to sonar. Let's just go to traditional sonar. Looks like it's trying to work. I don't want to leave this on because they will get hot when they're out of the water. So back, I'll see what. Check out clear view. Looks like it's working. Side view. Looks like it's working. So looks like everything's working right now. I'm gonna clip off some of the zip ties and everything, get it all cleaned up, get the boat cleaned up, and then I'll get back with you with the finished product. All right, so I've got everything put together, everything's buttoned up. This is our final product. So I got the trolling motor on secure, got all the cables. I still need to get a cover for this. It'll be all right for tomorrow. We're not supposed to have any rain by the time we get headed that way. What I like about the way I set this up is, you know, you always hear that if your transducer cable comes in contact with the trolling motor power cable or any other power cables, it can cause some interference. So the way I've got this run, all my slack is down here, away from everything that's hot. So shouldn't have any issues with the transducer touching any of the power cables at all. It doesn't even, not even up here where it's shielded. Comes up, back. All it took was drilling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes, which this isn't super hard metal. It wasn't hard to drill through at all. I really like this setup better than, you know, running it down the cable. I got the power and the transducer hooked up, got the clips on, got everything put back together up here. So, you know, when we get out to the lake, you know, this isn't the best unit, but it's what I got. You can only afford 1 or 2 at a time. This was a pretty good investment. So for the time being, you know, these Gen 1 Lowrances, they've got pretty decent mapping on them. So we'll probably use this for maps a lot. We've got a lot of waypoints stored in this particular unit right here. So this does have the structure scan box is right up there. So we can run structure scan and mapping off of this one. And then we've got this one, which has got the good Garmin maps. It's got our good Garmin mapping. It's got side view, it's got down view, and it's got chirp sonar. These clip on really secure. I actually think I had one for that other one at one time and left it on, forgot to take it off before we went down the road, and I lost it. So this one I think I probably won't have, since this has got the quick release. Let me set this up here and show you how this works. Since this has got the quick release, probably shouldn't have done that with the power on. I doubt I'll ever road it with the head unit on. I'll probably just keep this in my truck. So basically, this is our tournament rig. We fish a lot of high school tournaments in this thing. I'm the boat captain, so I do a lot of sitting behind the seat and taking naps every once in a while. So what we got now is we've got our new Garmin Echomap Plus 7.3 SV and our older Gen 1 Lowrance unit. That's a 5-inch Lowrance unit. We got these up front, and then in the back you see we've got another older Lowrance Gen 1 7-inch, which I had to, that was originally up on the front. That's the one that was on the front, the ram mount up front. And then I moved it to the back. I had to cut that whole lot a little bit bigger, but that's got some pretty good mapping in it. And that's important because I don't have it down here, it's up at the house, but on the ram mount at the console, I have a Garmin Striker 7 with a side view. It doesn't have any mapping. It's got GPS but no mapping, so we use the Lowrance for mapping and then use the Garmin for side view, down view, and chirp. It's got all those. It's not the best. It's about the cheapest way you can get into side view. If I had it to do all over again, I would have saved a little bit more money and got the Echomap and waited for the Echomap to come on sale and got the Echomap. I think I still paid about $450 for that one. So I only ended up paying $50 more catching the Echomap on sale to get a much better unit. It's got the quick release plate. This one right here is just like a normal unit where you put it on and plug everything in, and that's got the touch screen, the button assisted touch screen, and the good maps. It's got really good mapping in that one. And I, to be honest with you, I'm not the best. I'm probably not the best guy using my electronics. I'm still learning. We're hoping to get to go to a Garmin clinic. We go every year. We go to NSU, Northeastern Oklahoma State University, and watch Jason Christie speak. He's a big Garmin guy. They talked last year and said that they were probably going to put on a clinic to go through these Garmin units and how to properly use your electronics, and that's something that I'm learning as I go. You know, the boys, they watch a lot of YouTube, and they probably know a lot more about it. So we're going to get the boat out tomorrow. Mike and I, and maybe one of our other partners, Paul, are going to go out. We're going to go to Lake Arcadia. We're going to meet up for some breakfast at Pops, and then take the boat out, go see if we can get into some early pre-spawners, and use these new units and see how everything works out. Get the boat out and running. We've only been to one tournament since we got the boat out of the shop. A couple of weeks ago, the boys had a tournament at Sam Rayburn down in Texas. Didn't do as good as we had hoped, but learned a lot and got to see that lake and got to fish a legendary body of water. Caught some good ones, mostly on practice day. But here's what we got. So if you get ready to mount your a unit on a Maxim, Minn Kota Maxim trolling motor, hopefully I've given you some ideas. And when I looked at YouTube before I installed this, there really wasn't a lot on there about it. So and I wound up mounting it a little bit different way. Our plan A worked. We didn't have to go down the alphabet, so everything worked out good. And fish detectives, and we'll be shooting another video in the morning and hopefully catching some big ones.